Right, so first of all, thank you all for coming. On the back of your little thing is the agenda. We've got, so I can guarantee you some amazing speakers. And that's not me bigging myself up. I'm talking about the people we've invited. And I thought I'd just quickly, is that going to work? I'm also on tech support. So yeah, so this is what we're going to go through. With the sort of theme of the day, in the last couple of years, AI has got a bit like, what's going on? What should we do? So we're going to put some real practical context onto everything. Hopefully you'll leave with some useful sound bites, information, and then we'll send you all the slides. If you want, we'll connect you all to the speakers, and hopefully you'll leave with a little bit more knowledge. In terms of me, for those who don't know me, I've been in digital marketing since I left uni. Anybody remember the first time they phoned up a call center and they said, "What's your postcode?" and they told you your address, and you were like, "Wow, that's amazing." They call that AI nowadays, wouldn't they? But I worked for the company that invented that, and that business was sold to Experian. So that was in direct mail. Then I got into email marketing. Then I got into search marketing. Grew Search Laboratory from a few of us above a Thai takeaway to 200 people in North Leeds. Then joined Summit, which is part of the story of how we got to where we've got to. And then Rob and I set up Ride 25, and we're cycling to Australia. A little bit more about that in a minute. And that's where I met my co-founder and first investor, who's helped us set up this business. And there's two sides to our business. One is Ask BOSCO, which is the event we're at today. The other side is we've got an in-housing digital marketing. So we help brands who want to go in-house their digital marketing. So that's me. If you do want to come on our bike ride, all right, there's a QR code there. It might not work because the video's on top of it, but we'll talk to us later. But in September, we're cycling from Geneva to Milan, raising money for one more child. We've got some fellow cyclists. You going to do it? Yeah. 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 You don't need to be like an Olympic level cyclist. It's all about Colvin's doing it. Yeah. So if you don't buy any Ask BOSCO, you'll definitely go cycling. So there is a bigger picture behind our business. So we're doing the bike ride, and when I set the business up with Bon, we were like, well, we want to do something with a little bit more purpose. So actually, when we set the business up, we actually named the agency after one of the children in Uganda at the orphanage. So Modo is the name of one of the children, and 25 is the connection between the bike ride and the charity, and me and my co-founder, business partner. And then we actually named our software after the chap who runs the charity. So we thought, who will Modo go to get inspiration, advice, and vision? Well, she'll go Ask BOSCO. So that's why we're called Ask BOSCO. So that's a little bit about the background and the story of who we are and what we're doing. For me, business is all about people. And so when we set up the business, we said, right, we want to be one of the top places to work in the UK. And Rob, who's my business partner, Ride 25, we used to always have different competitions in different businesses of like who's got the best times, top 100 company. I think Rob won more. Yeah. But we're very proud to say we're the top 5 agency to work for in the UK, #1 outside of London, top 10 company of any size in Yorkshire and the Humber, and top 25 small businesses in the UK. So that's something really important. I think if you've got good people who are happy, they'll do really good work, right? That's sort of our theory. Right, so two sides of the business: digital marketing agency, housing, software as a service. All right, I'm going to talk about AI, right, in a minute. And I was trying to, I've been reading this book, and I was trying to summarize this book. And then I thought, well, actually, I might ask ChatGPT to summarize the book. And it sort of did an okay job. And then I found this video of the author summarizing his own book. So I thought, actually, that's easier to just play you the video than try and be really clever. So hopefully the video plays. And if there's one thing you do after today, you should go. Why is the video? Oh, this isn't good. Can I just jump in there, Colin? It's worth the wait, don't worry. Yeah, seamless. No, you've got to watch an ad now. That's annoying. These marketing agencies. All right, so
You're about to cross a critical threshold in the history of our species. Soon, we will live surrounded by AIs. They will carry out complex tasks, operating businesses, producing unlimited digital content, and even running core government services. Everything is about to change. I'm Mustafa Suleiman, an AI entrepreneur and co-founder of DeepMind and Inflection AI. In my new book, The Coming Wave, I tell this story of 21st century technology and suggest how we might make it work for everyone. The coming wave of new technology will make this next decade the most productive in history. It represents nothing less than a step change in human capability, introducing both risks and innovations on an awesome scale. Over the last year, we've seen the first signs that this wave of powerful, fast proliferating technologies is breaking. These tools, which alongside AI include technologies like synthetic biology, robotics, and quantum computing, will help address global challenges and create vast wealth. But they'll also bring upheaval on a once unimaginable scale. These forces even threaten the nation state itself, the very foundation of global order. I believe the containment problem, the task of maintaining control over these powerful technologies, is the essential challenge of our age. We must successfully contain history's most powerful technologies and forge a narrow path between catastrophic or dystopian outcomes toward a better world. Amidst unprecedented peril and extraordinary promise, my book, The Coming Wave, is both a stark warning and a hopeful guide to where society might go next. This is what's coming. Better understand the wave, will begin to understand the future.
So, if you want his book, I've got the QR code here, or just get onto Amazon or whatever your chosen platform is. But I was reading that, and I don't want to all be like doom and gloom of like AI is going to take all our jobs, but it's just eye-opening. And they talk about how quick how many people and how much time did it used to take us to produce 1 kilowatt hour of electricity? How much does that take now? About farming, and it brings it all into life. And then it starts talking about the evolution just in the last couple of years of what's happened and what is happening. And we're going to talk later with Colvin about what's all the legal implications of this. And like, the question I'm sort of interested in is government and everybody even ready to legislate against this, or have they already missed the boat? So if there's one thing you do, have a read of that book. We're going to do, Rob, hopefully you've all bought a raffle ticket. If you haven't, please buy a raffle ticket. That money goes directly to the charity. And we've got a weekend stay here at Homegrown. They've donated a dinner, bed and breakfast here, which is lovely. Nice members club. We've also got Jones the Bootmaker, one of our clients, they've donated a £100 voucher. Sigma Sports, another one of our clients, they've donated a £100 voucher. And Alder Green, possibly the best shirt maker in the country, have said you can go in their shop and choose any one shirt. One shirt, yeah. So lovely, beautiful shop, and you can go in and get yourself a shirt from Cormac. So we will draw that live. So we haven't taken your name. So if you're not here, it's a redraw. All right.
I said the best value possible lottery you could put into it. Very sorry if you said it, so please come and see me.
yeah. And you can just tap on Rob's phone and buy some tickets, and all the money goes straight to the orphanage in Uganda. Right, so it's not about me today, it's about our speakers. So up first is Tim from Exposure Ninja. So I met Tim talking at another AI event, and I'm like, that guy really knows his stuff. All right, so we started working together, and Tim's actually been helping our team learn more about all this stuff. So, and he's a very trusted, valued partner of Ask Bosco and Motor 25. So over to Tim.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. Everyone, quick show of hands.
Oh, hang on, I need to give you my mic because it's for the recording.
Oh, John.
Yeah.
Who has played with Google's AI overviews? Who has heard of Google's AI overviews? All right, who has absolutely no idea what this thing is? Okay, sweet. Okay, great. Well, my name's Tim. I run an agency called Exposure Ninja, and this AI overviews thing is going to be pretty massive. So this is a really fundamental shift in how Google is showing search results. It has massive implications for any of us that do SEO or get any sort of traffic from organic search. We've been playing with it for about a year now. Before it was released, we figured out how to sort of tweak it and rank it and hack it. So I'm going to show you some of that stuff. It's going to be fairly fast paced because normally take about an hour and a half to share this stuff. And John's very kindly given me 15 minutes. So I've got 15 slides, 15 minutes. Let's go. So I started an agency called Exposure Ninja back in 2012. We're a predominantly search focused agency. A team of 75, lots of clients around the world. Across all of those services. I'm now out of the business. There's a CEO who runs it, and I'm buying other agencies and other businesses in interesting spaces. Most people know us because of our book, How to Get to the Top of Google, which is one of the best-selling SEO books in the world, or our YouTube channel, where we share all of this stuff. So if you want to go further in depth with this stuff, there's loads of tutorials and things on our YouTube channel. But this AI overviews thing is pretty significant. I've been ranking websites since 2007. I think this is the biggest change that I've seen in that time about how Google is presenting search results. So here's what it looks like. Well, this is a search result before. So in this search, you can see we've just searched for, this is an informational query, is Nestle net zero? You can see that this is an informational query rather than a commercial one because we've got this featured snippet up at the top. This is just obviously taken from the website that's being ranked. Then we've got people also asked. So these are follow-up questions. And if you click on any of these little drop downs, you see some information that's taken from the website with a link to the website. And then we've got the regular organic results underneath. So this is the sort of search results that we're used to, where Google is linking to websites. Now with AI overviews, it's a fairly sort of profound change. So this is that same search, but with AI overviews activated. So instead of having all the website links and instead of having information directly taken from those websites, we've just got a generative AI produced bit of text here. And there are some websites being linked, but they're not really the citations or the references for that information, right? Google is giving us the information first and then giving us some websites that we can look into for more information. And I mean, this is a great example because you can see in this search, is Nestle net zero? Basically, the answer is yes on Google because it's coming from the Nestle website. In this query, is Nestle net zero? The answer is no. So not only does this change, obviously Nestle is going to be getting less traffic from this search because they are not the top ranking result. Well, they're here, but they're not here. But it's also changed actually the answer that Google gives. So this is quite a profound thing that we marketers have to contend with. The regular search results are still there. They're just pushed way down the fold. So we're expecting fairly significant impact in organic traffic as a result of this. We don't yet know exactly what that's going to look like because Google doesn't share any data. Yeah, we're expecting the impact to be fairly significant. Like I said, this is quite a profound change in Google's goal, which has always been to give websites that have the answer. Now Google just wants to give the answer. And obviously they have to do this to fight off competition from the likes of Perplexity or people asking queries on ChatGPT. Now, a lot in the SEO industry are sort of hoping that this thing goes away. And when Google released it, it was pretty much not ready for prime time. There were some pretty weird examples of this thing telling people to like stick cheese on their pizza using glue or eat rocks to get their daily iron intake and things like this. And a lot in the AI industry sort of sneer at that and say, well, they're going to take this thing out the back and bury it, right? I don't think that's going to be the case. Sundar has been very, very public in their investor calls about the fact that he thinks that this is the future of search. And I think really his reputation is now tied up in them rolling this thing out. So we have to adapt to it. We have to figure out how to rank. We have to figure out how to hack it to manipulate the results to suit ourselves, speaking honestly. So that's exactly what we've been doing. So here's where we're at with this thing. In May, Google released it in a beta testing mode called Search Labs. We started playing with it then and trying to figure out how to rank in it and play with it. By May this year, 64% of keywords, so 64% of the search terms tested were triggering these AI overviews. So this is massive, massive rollout. Now, when Google, this was still in testing mode though, when Google actually launched it live, they said they want this thing with 1 billion users by the end of the year. They launched it just in the US, so we expect that they're probably going to launch it in Europe and the UK before the end of the year. But when they did launch it, they reduced the number of keywords that it shows for. And they had to be really careful because obviously it costs them a lot more money to provide these answers. It takes a lot longer for their machines to provide these answers. And, you know, they can't be telling people to stick glue on their pizzas without some sort of blowback. So they've had to roll back the number of searches that it shows for. But some verticals see up to 26% of search terms bringing these AI overviews. And we think that this is going to continue to go up as they refine. They've taken out a lot of Reddit because a lot of Reddit answers were feeding these results. And that was, you know, Reddit's a real fucking mess, isn't it? Let's be honest. So having an AI that summarizes Reddit answers and then provide them as fact to users is, you know, you can tell it's a bad idea, right? And it shows that it actually was a bad idea. So we need to be ready for this. So how do we win? There's basically two ways to win. This is a search for what is CAS accreditation UK. It's a fairly commercial term. We have our client ranking at the top of Google for this. You can see in this search result, you've got some websites that are listed here. Now, Google's official stance on these websites is that these are corroborating the information in the answer. They are not supposed to be the source of the answer. I've proven that that's not true, but that is their official line, I expect, for various legal reasons, and they're going to have some fights and stuff about that. But these are supposed to be websites that corroborate the answer. Now, next to every paragraph, we get a little drop-down arrow. And if you click on that, you see the websites that corroborate that part of the answer. So obviously our goal, given that these websites are the only ones that show on page load, is we need to be corroborating the start of the answer, right? Does that make sense? So we want to have content on our site that corroborates this bit so we get a chance of ranking here. So that's the first way to win, is to be one of the websites that's linked here, because at the end of the day, there's 3 websites showing here above the fold. In the old search result, there might have been 5. So potentially we might get some more traffic than we have been getting. The other way to win is that sometimes this thing will actually recommend individual businesses. So we want to be able to influence the answer so that if someone's searching for best marketing agency or best whatever happiness measurement company or whatever, we get a chance of showing up, right? There is going to be another way to win, which is paid search. So somehow Google's going to build PPC into this. We don't know what it's going to look like. They've been promising it for about a year. All that we're seeing at the moment is ads at the top or underneath. They're going to have to build it in though, and that'll be the third way to win. It's $100 billion a year, $160 billion a year revenue source for them. So they're definitely going to roll it in. So how do we win? How do we actually get our websites ranking in AI overviews and influence the answers to recommend us? There's 3 main ways. First step is we have to rank well in the regular search first. So 84% of these AI overviews are linking to websites in the top 10. So you have to be already ranking well, but that's not enough. You also have to do some specific optimizations for AI search, which I'll talk to you about in just a second. But we've seen quite a few searches where the website that is ranking top isn't anywhere in the AI overviews. So that's deadly for them because they've been used to getting all this traffic from regular organic search, and now they're just nowhere. And then the third thing that we're going to need to do is get coverage elsewhere too. So I'm pretty tight on time, but if we have time, we'll talk about this. But this is basically digital PR, so getting featured on other websites. 2 ways of doing this to influence the results. Firstly, find the websites that are being cited in the AI overview answer and get featured on those. The other way is just get your business talks about loads online so that next time Google's training the model, you've got a chance of being in that training data. Okay, so let's talk about optimizing for AI overviews super quick. So this is an example of one of those worst case scenarios. This is a search for sponsored tag. It's a marketing term, doesn't really matter. But Exposure Ninja's website, we were ranking top of Google for this. But in the AI overviews, we were absolutely nowhere. So we didn't have any of these drop-down links. We weren't in the carousel at all. Sad times. So one of my things last year was just figuring out how to fuck this thing so it shows us, and we got there. So this search now, sponsored tag, and then you can see Exposure Ninja is now linked what we're calling position 1, which is basically the first reference website there. Not reference website, sorry, supporting website, corroborating website. You can see from this search also, Google's been playing with various versions of this in testing mode. So here you can actually see they had some functionality where you could ask follow-up questions and actually chat with the search results. They've rolled that back since launching it, but we expect that we might see this again at some point in the future. So how do we do this? Well, firstly, we're already ranking in the search results. Secondly, it turns out that when the AI overviews, whatever model is using to index content, when you'd normally write a blog post like this, right? What are these tags? This is the blog post that ranked for that term. You would normally start off with like the history, right? Same as if you're looking for a recipe, you're looking for banana pancake recipe, right? You open the blog post that starts with, what are bananas? What are pancakes? What's the history of banana pancakes? When might you eat banana pancakes? Like all of this sort of preamble shit, because you want someone to scroll to the bottom of the page. It turns out AI overviews don't like that. They don't really respond to that. What they respond well is basically a really short, concise snippet at the top of the page that directly answers the question. Now, remember, we want to get ranking at the top of the AI overview. So we need to corroborate the information at the start of that answer. So we need our intro paragraph to basically back up the start of the answer in the AI overviews. Make sense? Cool. Also, it turns out it likes really short, simple sentence structure, very plain language, one concept per sentence, ideally. So no, I tend to overuse commas and have like massive long sentences. It doesn't seem to dig that. It seems to like really short, simple sentences. And if you do that, you've got a chance of ranking in these AI overviews. The good news is that if you make these, so what we've done is we've just gone through our pages. We've added these sort of intro paragraphs that just answer the question really quickly, submit them through Search Console, and within 5 hours, typically, you're either ranking or you're not. If you're not, you're going to need to do it again. So just go through the whole process, rewrite it, submit through Search Console. And again, you'll get ranking pretty quickly. If it's not happening in 12 hours, it's not going to happen. Okay, so what do people need to do with this? Firstly, the first thing that we're suggesting is people play with this. So have a look at the different search terms in your industry, see what sort of results are bringing up these AI overviews. So you just get familiar with what it looks like from a user's perspective. Then run tests to get your content ranking. So that's exactly what we're doing with our clients, going through all of their content that's ranking well. If it's not ranking in AI overviews, we'll add those intro paragraphs, play with it, re-optimize it, submit it, see if we can get it ranking. Once we know how to do that for a few pages, we then have the comfort that when Google rolls this out across the world, we can then just go through the rest of their pages and optimize, right? Because we know what works. We just need to then just keep repeating it. So when this thing launches by the end of the year, we're going to be ready. Then we can just expand the optimization process across all the other pages. Keep doing great SEO. Like SEO is not dead. There's been a lot of talk about SEO being dead. Actually, it's never been sort of less dead because I think more people are using this type of thing. Google's also working on some like multi-step reasoning that's going to happen in search results, which we don't have time to talk about now. But SEO is going to be more important than ever because it's going to become more of a black box than ever. So it's really important to get your website in those organic results so that when these chatbots are doing organic searches in the background and combining the answers, you're showing there. Really important to get mentioned across a whole range of websites on the internet because this is the training data for the next model. And then follow Exposure Ninja on our YouTube channel, on our podcasts and our books, because we're talking about this stuff all the time. We think it's really important. So few businesses are talking about this at the AI event that John mentioned. I was presenting to SEO agencies, and I don't know, 20% of them had even heard about this. This is rolled out in the US publicly right now, and it's so big, it's so massive. And I think so many businesses that are just used to getting traffic from Google, they don't know that this thing is coming. So that's what I got for you. If you want any help from us, we have a free marketing review service that you can get from exposureninja.com, where we'll just take a look at how your business is doing with these AI overviews, give you some recommendations. It's totally free. There's no funny business, no weirdness or anything like that. We're not going to sell your data, promise. So just go to Exposure Ninja. If you need to hit me up, then there's my email. John, 15 minutes, job done.
Can I touch you again?
No.
And just to sort of validate that, we took on board some of Tim's advice and training, and we got our team to play with the Modo 25 site, and we were nowhere for the term "what is PPC," and we then suddenly appeared #1 and in the recommended bit. We're now gone again, so we're trying to work out what. And it is about iteration and testing, but it took us about 2 hours. Whereas SEO used to always be this whole thing, it's going to take you 6 months, it's going to take 12 months, sign a long contract, all this sort of stuff. So you can literally manipulate the search engine, which is both exciting, but also scary because people might abuse it or probably will abuse it. Right. So now for some reality. I've known Dom for years. He's one of the retail experts, a former Olympian. Yeah. Not Olympian, it's like hockey. And he's going to talk through the sort of economic outlook. And then once we're sort of all a bit depressed, then we're going to have Steve, who's going to lift us up before a coffee. Is that the right intro? Is that the intro you wanted? Yeah.
Put the hedgehog on.
Yeah, there you go. Right, if I'm
Is it
gonna
that way?
take away the stool, then you've got a bit more space to stand.
That way
Do you want
forward.
to stand or do you want to sit?
I'll stand, that's fine. Right, yeah, so I'm Don, I'm a partner at KPMG, and I've had the privilege of working with retailers for the last 30 years or so. And as John said, we do clearly at KPMG, we have to do a view on AI and how people are using it, how we're helping clients with it. But what John asked me to do was to anchor the conversation in what's happening in the real world. So I'm going to talk about the economy and some stats around retail data in terms of particularly about retail. And then I'm going to just touch on what consumers are actually telling us from their financial data. I've got a 28-year-old daughter, so I do know that there is a complete difference between what people say and what people do. So she will tell me that fast fashion is killing the planet. At the same time, the doorbell is ringing with her next day sauce and shine parcel. Okay, so what we tried to do with the customer data is go, actually, what are people really spending their money on? But let's start with the economy. Essentially, it's pretty stagnant going forward. If I'd done this slide 2 days ago before we released our last quarter's results, it would have been 0.1% lower. So we're going in the right direction, everybody, right? It's gone up a bit. But ultimately, what this says is that it's pretty stagnant. And if you just get a thought around something, which is, if GDP growth was tracked from 2019 to now, it would be 2.2%. That's normally quite a good year on its own, and that's been spread over the last 4. Inflation is back under control. That's good news. But then let's work out that if prices had risen at the 2% target of the Bank of England since 2019, then they would have been 13% lower. Okay, so we've had a 13% rise in prices above and beyond because of the inflation stats. So that's not great. However, these are a few more stats. So the good news is wage growth is slightly higher than inflation now, which means that we're starting to make that journey back to feeling like we've got a bit more money in our pocket. Exchange rates look steady and look like they continue to be steady, which I think probably, notwithstanding another black swan event, probably helps people to plan a little bit better. And interest rates have basically got to a point where we think they've peaked and they're going to start to come down. We are not going back to the age of free money. Okay, so I'm sorry to disappoint, but we do think it will come down. Equally, the lag between the interest rates. So only 28% of people in the UK have a mortgage, and of that, 50% of them are on a 5-year fixed, and that percentage has been growing. So the lag on interest rates, in terms of actual impact on probably our largest amount of spend, has happened and is starting to come out. As I was confidently told by my head of consulting and a retail CEO, I said that to. They were like, "That's great, Don, but I came out in January, and that's not helpful. Thank you very much." So if you have had to refix, you've had to refix at a higher level. But the interest rate story, I think, has peaked and coming down. And unemployment actually is historically low. So that number went up by about, in our view, about 0.2%, but it's historically low. If you want to work in this country, you can work, and that's a completely different debate about whether you want to work or not, and it's a completely different debate about how productively you work and where you choose to work. I understand that, but if you do want to work in this country, you can work, and that is historically low, and we don't think there's a big wave of unemployment coming our way. So in terms of, this is a very fussy slide, but ultimately what it says is we're going to spend about the same amount of money next year as we did this year when we come to consumer spending. There is a gentle shift from retail spending to experience, and that's likely to continue. And what the bit at the bottom starts to talk about is about online penetration. So online penetration had this massive COVID bounce and then retreated for about 29 months in a row, and it's sort of plateaued out. And it's plateaued out by category. And I think that is slightly helpful, because I think that gives you a reference point for, if you're a perfectly balanced business, where your online penetration rate would be, recognizing that we only are tracking the point of the transaction when we're talking about online penetration. We're not actually tracking the customer journey, because I think we've all realized that actually, when we look at our own behavior, we move between the digital and the real world channels in different ways, depending on the mission that we're on. So, but I do think it's interesting, because I do think you get a balance there. That's not to say we won't have digital only businesses and digital only models. I think their challenge is how they turn up in the real world. And it doesn't mean that if there won't be predominantly store-based models. I just don't see Primark, for instance, making a big move into an online transactional web bit. Though I think you can see that they're starting to use the digital channel for things like click and collect, and the same is true of Aldi and Lidl, etc., where it will be very difficult to make that channel profitable. But I think that online penetration bit just gives us a reference point, and it's likely to stabilize and start to creep up. And that is indeed what it did last month. When we look at the retail data in terms of actual spend, it's been pretty anemic, but it's totally been driven by food, and it's been totally driven by price, not by volume. So we've just been spending more on the stuff that we have to spend it on. There have been some resilient categories in there in terms of real world, which have been health and beauty, and they've been value. Now, I recognise when I say that you'll go, and we are definitely seeing differing performances within category. I've just told you value is a resilient category, but we all know Wilko failed. So you can be in a resilient category, but if you're not a good operator, then you're going to fail. And actually, that is something that I think we do need to see a little bit more of, quite frankly, which I don't say with great appetite, but we do need a bit of creative destruction in terms of our retail environment, because that gives the air and the space for people to grow into. Yeah, go. No, they're just the straight numbers. Okay, so this is year-on-year growth, so compared to month-on-month growth. Does that make sense? So that's the point, is that all of those numbers have been pushed up only by price, not by volume. Yeah. Right, so we are buying less stuff, for sure. Yeah. So in volume terms, they'll all be down completely. And in terms of the other bits that start driving it, there's definitely been a return to store post-COVID. And as far as we can see, when we look at return to store, it's been more return to retail part than it has been to high street, which is not helpful. But as I said, volumes are still very challenged. And some of the discounts that people are providing to try and drive some behavior are undermining those price rises that they've tried to push through. I think it is quite interesting, actually, we lost the pricing muscle in this country. So if you go back, actually 20 years ago, we haven't really risen prices in this country as a retailer. So when we got to the point when we had inflation, we had quite a lot of people going, well, how do we do this? Like, what happens if you do this? What I think was interesting when we started having that with our grocery clients, we're like, just go and have a chat with some people in Turkey and Argentina, because they're quite good at it, right? Because they've had it forever. I do think there are some winning strategies in this marketplace, by the way. So there is no doubt that you can grow a smaller business relatively quickly digitally, right? That's still an opportunity. It's how you get from a sort of lifestyle level of scale through to penetrating to really growing a scalable business. At the other end, there is a definite opportunity for scale players, and I think we're seeing that, especially as people start to think about, how do I monetize some of my capabilities rather than just try and sell one more of my bits of product? So what I mean by that is, do I have something that I do better than anybody else? So that might be distribution, or it might be digital marketing, or it might be a customer base that I can monetize that somebody else will pay me for, not because I'm selling another product. Sort of the thinking behind Frasers with Frasers Plus and their ecosystem, and their buying of other brands. It's behind the next total brick resale platform. It's that level of thinking. I think we'll start to see more and more of that level of thinking. How can I raise money or raise income, not just out of selling my product? Health and beauty still looks like it's resilient, though the luxury end actually across the board, and the luxury and health and beauty is tougher. And I think that's partly the aspirational bit and the challenge that we've got in our pockets. Ultimately, strong operators win in this marketplace. So then just turning to what the consumers are actually saying. So this is some work we do with Snoop, which is the financial app that screens a bunch of data, as well as a group of people that we ask for their opinion, and then we check it against what they've actually spent. And I think there's some quite stark bits in here. There are 1 in 5 of our population are worried about food. There's about 50% of our population have less than 3 months of income in savings, so it's virtually none. 4 times what people are more likely to save than spend, and 4 in 10 are moving to own brand. And when they move to own brand, what they're actually talking about there is frozen and fresh food, as well as clothing. Though interestingly, 1 in 10 say they'll trade down to own brand, if you trade to own brand, for their pets, which I find a bit weird. So we value our pets more than we value our own children and our own food purchasing, but that's a different point, I suppose. There's also an interesting point in here about the prevalence and rise of buy now, pay later. It's about a 20% increase year on year. And I think that comes with some quite interesting thoughts about how we as retailers or as providers of that decide to do that. I'm a bit caught here because on one side of me, there's a little bit, Hamish will debate this, but I'm a little bit socialist in the fact that I do think it's right that we should give people, as many people as possible, the opportunity to have the assets, products, experiences that they should have that anybody else has, and buy now, pay later does that. On the other side, I go, I can't see any evidence that anybody teaches basic budgeting in schools, so I do worry that we're creating the opportunity for a whole bunch of our society to get themselves into some debt trouble, and that I think is a challenge. I think this, although it's less regulated than maybe it will increasingly become, I suspect this is more a reputational risk than at the moment than it is a legal risk, but I think it is definitely one to be aware of. But ultimately, so the market's not great, the consumer sentiment is not great. I do think it feels a little bit better once we get through the elections and we get some stability. Almost whoever gets in, actually, we just have some certainty of what that might look like, and we'll get a much greater sense of what they are going to want to do, whether that's here, the States, or in Europe, and there's some changes across the world. And I think we're starting to see that in our M&A business, where we've got a lot more businesses having conversations with us about preparing to sell in 25, 26. So ultimately, I think the winners end up being those people who innovate and innovate with appetite, as well as execute really, really in a very disciplined way. I'm sort of taken, given it's Wimbledon, with that stat that Roger Federer came out with, which he played 1,265 matches in his career. He won 80% of them. But in those 80%, he won 52% of points. So he lost about 1 in every other point. And I suspect most of the businesses in this room and online at home are going to have a much better success rate than Roger Federer. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we will send lots of details around. He has an excellent newsletter and links to lots of other stuff that he sends around on a regular basis with this sort of summary of what is going on with the world.
Oh, the hog. Sorry.
Right, so a while ago, when 12 years ago, when Rob and I were setting up Ride 25, we said we need to make a really solid brand, and we put a little WhatsApp message around. It probably wasn't even WhatsApp then. We asked some people, and a friend of ours says, "Oh, I met this guy in Annabelle's the other week. He's amazing. You're either going to love him or you're going to hate him." All right. Yeah, he's totally crackers, he said. And anyway, Rob and I thought, well, we've got to go find out. And anyway, we went to meet Steve, and we loved him. So, and Steve also created the Modo 25 brand, and we've worked together on and off for the last 12 years. So Steve's going to talk about why we don't believe AI is going to replace proper branding. Okay. And I also believe that. So, round of applause for Steve.
Thank you.
Do you want me to click or do you want to click?
I can click.
Just thank you. That one on the right.
That one on the right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's great to see you all. Yeah, I mean, look, you know, I was very lucky. 3 wonderful things happened to me when I was 4 years old. First of all, I discovered glitter, magic markers, and plastic scissors, and things have never changed. Every day I skip into my studio with my glitter, magic markers, and plastic scissors. Second, fishing. I was born in the East End, 4 years old. My dad was always worried about us because obviously kids, we need to learn about nature. There's lots of canals and ponds, so I could go fishing. My dad taught us fishing. We used to go fishing. Third great thing that happened to me was I was sent to school and sent back a bit quick because they said, this kid is fucking wild and he can't be taught. So therefore, I was very lucky and I was sent back. Obviously, I had lots of learning difficulties. Now they've all come out, but the predominant one was at that age, my dad had a dear friend. My dad worked in the meat market in Smithfield. He had lots of amazing friends because he was an artist. My mum was a sculptor. And luckily for me, he had a friend called Dennis Gray, head of IPC magazines, who married a woman from New Zealand. And she was a learning difficulty teacher, saw me as a 4-year-old and said, this kid has got severe dyslexia. I've never read a book in my life because I still can't. It's like a jar of wasps. You put one in and 12 fly out. It doesn't come in. It does not go in. So I was very fortunate that Valerie said, look, Dennis is doing well at IPC magazines. I will home teach Steve. So I never went to school. So I used to go to their house every morning at 4 years old, and I would do my studies with Valerie in the morning. But luckily for me, Dennis, IPC magazines had 3 publications that he loved, that he looked after: Practical Boat Builder, Practical Homeowner, and Practical Woodworker, which meant if he was going to do a story on how to build a mirror dinghy, he'd have to make it, photograph it in stages, create the flat mechanical artwork. Well, he had a studio and a workshop in the house that I was taught. So at 4 years old, in the morning, doing my studies, in the afternoon, going to this amazing workshop with Dennis and start making a mirror dinghy for one of these articles. How to saw wood, how to varnish, how to use a sewing machine. And I did that. And it was just the best time of my life. And at 5 years old, my mum bought me a sewing machine. My mum's a good Jewish girl, and I got my sewing machine and I started making all my own clothes. Now, when you're 5, putting a zip in a pair of trousers is fucking difficult. But what was easy was to make long dresses. All my neighbors gave all their curtains. By the way, I'm not wearing curtains today, all right? This is Gucci, just for you to know. And I would make all my own clothes and allowed to wear my own clothes. And little blonde skinny kid barefoot in this house had the most amazing time. And then at 12 years old, Dennis then gave me my own publication in a magazine called Look and Learn. And I had where I would have to do an article every month. Everybody owned tortoises. If it was started getting cold, I would design how to design and build the tortoise hibernation box. And following month, it would be Easter, how to decorate Easter eggs and make Easter cards. Got paid for it. Right result, all of a sudden I had some money. Anyway, a year later, 13, knock at the door. I open the door, funny enough, and there's a schoolboard man standing there. I'm in a dress, long hair. He obviously doesn't think I'm Steve Edge. He fucking says, is your brother in? Like, no. Straight away, definitely no. And anyway, by law, I had to go to school. So Dennis wrote a fabulous letter for me, and he sent me to a posh school in Dulwich. He wrote to the art department and said, this kid's got to live in the art department, which they accepted me. So every day I'm in this art department from 13 to 15. At 15, the head of art entered me in for European Artist of the Year, which was a big competition. And I won it. I won all the categories. I created a big Lagonda car. My dad was restoring a Lagonda car in the garden under one of those polytunnels. And I used all the separate bits and the offcuts and bits of old motor that he had and created this big installation and won it. My dad was a great guy because we had all sorts of animals. We had our own pet chimpanzee, believe it or not, in Bethnal Green, which was pretty wild then. Primo, called Primo, used to sit at the dinner table with us with guests. They used to come in and shit themselves, first of all, because, you know, it was a bit of a big chimp. Anyway, sort of, you know, once we'd finished eating, we'd pass the sweet packet around and Primo would get hold of the packet and everybody would go, it's amazing. Primo boss-eyed, look in this packet, it's amazing. Get hold of a sweet, it's amazing. Get hold of the other end, it's amazing. Undo the sweet, throw the sweet away, need a wrapper on cue. Every working time, this chimp. Anyway, I won this competition. And luckily for me, Jim Henson and Frank Oz was there. And they said, would you like to come and work with us? I'm 15, and they said, yeah, come and work on the Muppet Show with us. So I did. So for 2 years, I worked on the Muppet Show. It was quite amazing. Every week we had Debbie Harry, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sid Charisse, all these amazing people coming. And I was spoilt as a kid and had the most amazing time until there was a terrible shock. Biggest shock of my life when Jim Henson said, Steve, there's a man over the road at Elstree Studios. He loves all your work. He wants you to go over there. So I said, well, why are you getting rid of me? He said, no, I'm not getting rid of you. It's just a big opportunity. He said, you've got to go. If you don't like what you see, you must come back. I went, okay, but what go and see? He said, you've got to go and see a bloke called George Lucas. To which I went, who the fuck is George Lucas? He said, he's made a film called American Graffiti, and you've got to go and meet him. Went over the road. 2 tasty people took me upstairs into his big office, sat in front of this very nice man. He said, Steve, I love all your work. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, I want you to come and work with us. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to work in the art department. I said, what do you want me to do in the art department? He went, anything you want. Now remember, glitter, magic markers, plastic scissors, right? I'm fucking happy. So I said, can I see the art department? Takes me to this amazing art department. Carpentry shops, plastic vacuum form machines, spray booths, ironmongery. Came back, I went, whoa, that's the best art department I've ever seen. He said, wow, what do you reckon? I said, what's the film going to be about? He said, oh, it's going to be the greatest science fiction film ever. He said, it's going to be called Star Wars. I went, what? I said, what do you reckon? I went, fuck, I love that name. That's a great name. So I did Star Wars. I worked in the art department, working on the Millennium Falcon, best briefs ever I've ever been given in my life. You know, I'd be sitting around a table full of all these amazing people. Of course, I was a kid. I thought I was terribly grown up, but a big table full of amazing people. And then Norman Reynolds would say to me, okay, Steve, this is your day. There's been a Zion cannon attack down on stage 9. I want you to make sure those stormtroopers look like they lost to the Zion cannon attack. Actually, brilliant. I know exactly what I've got to go and do. And I will go and make sure they lost that Zion cannon attack. I then worked on a film called Empire Strikes Back. While I was working on Empire Strikes Back, we're working on the Dagobah system. George said to me, Steve, he said, we should have some snakes in these woods here. I went, yeah, my dad's got snakes. He went, oh, give him a ring. I rang my dad, and my dad brought some boa constrictors and some reticulated pythons and all sorts of other species, and we dressed them in the trees. And it was great. And because of that, funny enough, when we did Raiders of the Lost Ark, my dad supplied all the snakes. And it was my pet monkey in that. Oh, sorry. Back on. There's me. Oh, there. There's me at 23 with my pet monkey. There's Indiana Jones. And we had the most amazing time. Snuff was a funny little monkey. He got up to lots of mischief. And then funny enough, I was working in the art department. Spielberg came up and said, Steve, we need your help. The stunt woman will not go in the snake pit. She refuses. So I had my legs shaved and I wore the party dress. And next time you see Raiders of the Lost Ark, they're my nutmegs in that, in that film. So it was great. And then I finished Raiders. And then I said to, it was George Lucas and Steven Spielberg did that film. And I said, boys, I'm going to finish. I'm 23 now. I want to set my own thing up. I said, I've always loved brands. I love the power of the brand. I said, and you know what? You've taught me the best thing of all, stories. You've created the world's best stories. And if you have a good story, you want to tell someone. And if it's a bad story, you don't tell anybody. I said, I'm going to work with brands and I'm going to create the best brands in the world. I said, because that's what I want to do. I want to tell that great story. And I said, and because of my issue about there's too much information out there, even people that can read, there's too much information. Look at today on websites, too much information. I said, so instead of being informational, I'm going to be inspirational. And instead of being literal, I'm going to be lateral. I said, I'm going to feed people components, things into their head that they're going to create wow, because that's the only way you're going to create wow. Otherwise, you sort of never do that. And so therefore, I created this agency. All the great brands came to me from all over the world. We did Cartier, we did Fortnum & Mason, did Skanska, Sir Robert, all these amazing brands. But what was interesting for me, it was about what does that mark mean, that badge, your badge, the logo. And the logo is very important because, first of all, it has to be memorable. We know that. It has to be beautiful. We know that. And it has to be easy to use. Because if your brand, your logo is difficult to use, and all of a sudden you start using it in wrong places and it doesn't work. And of course, the whole thing about a mark, the badge is, you know, look at that amazing mark, you know, whether you like it or not, the Mercedes badge, once seen, never forgotten. Whether you like a German car, a luxury car, doesn't matter. Once you see it, bang, you know exactly what it is. And we know that's the power of the brand. And of course, you know, where did that mark come from? You know, the mark, where did it originate from? Well, 5,000 years ago, they found a cave in south of France, and there was a beautiful bison painting on the wall, and there was a mark by the side of it. And they said that was the badge of the owner of the bison. That was the first logo ever found 5,000 years ago. Then it goes to the 12th century, knights in shining armor, all knocking shit out of their own as well, because they can't tell who they are, because they're all dressed the same. It's like, fucking no, you just done one of ours. Well, okay, let's create the coats of arms. Let's have the coats of arms. So we're the good, look who we are. And that's the baddies. Let's go and get them. And then it goes to the, you know, Romans 800. They created the power of the brand in the sense, you know, the value of the brand. There was lots of dodgy wine, dodgy product, people buying it, eating it, dying. And they said, from now on, you've got to put what's in the product, when it was made, how old, and that's where the value of the brand came. And it goes right down to the Industrial Revolution. And you look at mass producing of lots of products, and branding really played its part. And what did it one best of all was Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola making brown sugar water, or had a bit of cocaine in it, which was a result, I presume, but, you know, brown sugar water. And therefore it was mass produced, and people would nick it and rip it off. And that was a problem. So they said, you know what? We're going to create the Coca-Cola bottle, a bottle that was so expensive to make that no one could produce that bottle apart from Coca-Cola, because it was so expensive, and that was their product. And that's what made Coca-Cola great. And of course, you know, we're now coming to, when it comes to the power of the brand, the great story for me was when Enzo, 1923, walked into a small village in Italy, and there was Madame Baracca, one of his great relatives. And she said, Enzo, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to make a car. I'm going to make the best car in the world. I'm going to make a car so beautiful that everybody will want it. Most desirable car. She went, that's amazing. She said, as you know, my son was a war hero in the First World War. He was a pilot. He was a great fighter pilot in a biplane. And unfortunately, he was killed. However, as a gift, and he would love this, I know, I'm going to gift you, on the side of his plane, he'd painted a rampant horse, a black rampant horse. She said, I'm going to give you that, and that will bring you good luck, and that will live in the spirit of my son. And he went, thank you. And of course, we know what happened. The thing about AI and branding is, for me, it's about emotional intelligence. It's about passion. It's about personality. And I'll tell you a very quick story. Am I all right? Thank you. A very quick story. One was that I was asked to brand the first build-to-rent company that came over here from America. Build-to-rent, big, hundreds of apartments, doing it really well, breakout areas, gymnasiums, community-led. American pension fund M3, billions and billions of dollars. And these guys came to me and said, Steve, and they came from a company called Essential Land, said, can I name this company? So we came up with Essential Living. We love this word, essential living. Living, now everybody nicks it, although we've done all the other build-to-rent brands. And we created this brand. Anyway, the company went incredibly well, took off. After about 3 or 4 years, the 3 guys who created this company, one of them, unfortunately, they didn't particularly like. The Americans didn't like him. He was ex-Barclay Holmes managing director. He said, we're going to kick you out. He had to go, and he was really upset. They got rid of him, and he came to see me. He said, Steve, I can't believe it. He said, I set this company up. I was the one that created it. They've got me off the board, and now I'm bringing. Now, this guy's wild, okay? He's a wild guy. He's incredibly funny. He's incredibly nice. He's actually a super bright guy. And he said, Steve, I need you to create a new brand for me. He said, because I'm done. I'm done from them. I need a logo. I need an identity. I need the story. I went, okay. A few weeks later, he came to me. I said, it's done. Come and see me. Come to the studio. You ready? He said, yeah. He sits down, projects on the wall. I said, this is the name of your company. This is a great fuel. Flick through to the next application, showing him business cards, letterheads, going all the way through to web page. Come back. I said, okay, what do you reckon? He went, oh, that's okay. I said, this fuel was okay. So I'm like, you said, I get it. You know, we need fuel. We need fuel to go forward. We need fuel for energy. I went, no, you're wrong. You haven't got it. He went, I haven't got it. I went, no. I said, you ready? He went, yeah. He said, what is it? I went, fuck you, essential living. We went bonkers. He had a wank, excuse me. He went absolutely bonkers. Fuck, he went, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Fuck you, essential living. Now, I don't think AI could possibly do that. Maybe in the future, but at the moment, definitely not. However, last but not least, I was, again, another realization, very fortunate, from the 4, went to 9 years old. In all poor families, you have a rich aunt. And I had a rich aunt. I had the best rich aunt ever. She used to buy all my artworks, my drawings, my little furniture I had made for her. And I went round there with my mum one day at 9 years, cabinets full of glass and china and all sorts of stuff. And I said to my aunt, when do you use all this? She said, on special occasions. And 5 days later, she died. And she never used anything. She never used nothing. And I said to my mum, I went, Mum, you know what? I said, I know I've got my Sunday best, I said, and I'm 9 years old. I said, but look what happened to my aunt. I said, you know what? I said, from now on, Mum, I'm going to dress for a party every day. I said, and the party will come to me. I'm not going to wait for a special occasion because we're such a long time dead. So all of you guys here, get your best little silver backless number on tomorrow. Get that white whistle on, right, that I know you've got. And trust me, the party will come to you. And if you ever find yourself in Shoreditch, knock on our Bobby Moore and I'll be there for a party. Please join me. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
And I'd highly, oh, where did that little back bit go? Oh, hold on. I think it went in your bag. I won't rummage in your bag.
No, you can.
I've got another one. We can use the other one from the other one. So I'm sure you'll agree, Steve's got inspirational stories. And if you ever do want to go and check out what he's doing in his studio, it's a fascinating place to go. So, and we'll share all the details around afterwards. Right, so we're going to have a quick coffee break now. We are slightly behind, so just quick refill, 5 minutes, loo break, check a few texts, and then we'll be back here at 20 past. Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Can we find that little magnet, Steve? Steve, is that? I think it's. Yeah, and if you need a raffle ticket, go buy one off Rob. And you can win a weekend here. How are you doing? Yeah, got tough. Good, good tough. Yeah. Yeah.
Looks amazing.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, our sister company.
Yeah, I know.
We want to hang out with these people.
I'm going to go see it. Because I was immediately thinking, you know what, we need to get all of our loads of
Yes.
this is your brand. Listen to this guy. Go and see it. Because we don't make friends. I was chatting them after they've been. If I set my own business up, I bet you I'd go see him. I bet you within 10 minutes I know exactly what it was and he'd come up with something really good. Not thin IP or any shit like that.
But the other thing that I was struck by was the fact that you were very much going to my nephews and nieces. I was thinking, but so it's great to it's great to you know really send a message to look. Yeah, so it's good.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. It should. I'll just shut the power. I'll just shut the power going down and start it. No, I've got it. It's easier than getting a YouTube video. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry, it's fine.
When I find the right part, it's all direction. I love the idea that someone like you take some of their story, something meaningful. So it's a difficult thing in our profession. I find it. It's been separated.
I'm going to be so beautiful in about half an hour.
Thank you very much for coming. Well, I hope it was interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to see the next occasion to the club at 11.
Now, what we looked at here, it's just what we take. Yeah,
it's a very privileged experience.
With the extra bit on the floor, and like taking up half of the road. Yeah. And how business.
I think definitely the last 2 weeks have been excellent, that sort of thing. It's something to say.
Yeah,
Definitely. Overall,
there's the aspiration of people who maybe can't quite afford it, but want to buy it, maybe aren't buying it.
yeah,
Those people are probably the ones.
yeah, and the trouble is, of course, the big technology, even
Yeah.
so slightly 5 years, 10 years.
Challenge your business. I don't just buy it once on a Friday night. It's a cost of the purchase, there's no parties involved. Being able to make and track all of that.
Yes, this is very true. We tend to consider people to be lax after 2 years.
I think it's about how much is too much or is enough. Because one of the things that we've been talking a lot, I think we've all had to pay million pounds to make sense. But with all the tracking things and the privacy things, we're almost going to go back to the world of like TV. I'm going to give on money for and it's not going to be a direct. It's been making Google. And they're saying it's all about all the traffic. Before they could think it was they started because it was there, or £20 or £2. But that maybe the way because of all the cookie content and everything, we're not going to stuck in it, right? It's just going to be right? And I think we're going to need agencies to give you a view of the teenagers and what's going on. Because before you could put that but now this and doing the have to tell me that.
Yes.
And nobody really told me that.
Yeah, well, you're another guy too.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Whoa.
It's like ran by law. And if you or we can ask people, it doesn't matter.
I'm like yours, but you've got a lot of products with a lot of fixtures and still we did that. Yes, we do well. And you've got those great ones. I think the companies that are just private ICTs aren't going to do well. Or I think it's also, we got an inbound lead last week from the sports brand saying, what's the best? So I said, how do you find it? And he said, oh, type of what's the best marketing agency to launch a sport? And I'm like, what did it say? It's you. So both. I'm like, but we launched a store 4 weeks ago. I completely forgot about it. And he goes, and then it's restaurant, you've got case on goal. Yeah, we got, and we've got kick game, a lot of sport. We worked, yeah, he is really good. He can surround it. Yeah. It's what we like to say. I know, so I met Ian years ago. Rob and I took the cycling and I actually done it for publicity for years. It's not good. But I can get to know all the nice people at the time stuff. And all these very awful weeks. I've read it.
But we were not lying on this way. I used to like it's now boss and I love that. Yeah, they asked me,
And also then you I would like to very one that shows Cannondale is and actually really we would say if you
yeah. Anyway, I'll let you get on.
No.
I'm going to grab another coffee and then.
Your mic.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
No, it's for the recording.
Okay. In that case, I'll.
Just fiddle touch you up a bit.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
These magnetic ones are a bit better.
Okay, cool.
Right, so I need to get my phone out with the questions on. Thank you all for coming back. So with all this evolution of AI moving at such a great pace, there is a bit of nervousness. And I think a lot of us are quite, oh, well, we'll worry about that later. It's someone else's problem. If everybody's doing it, it's going to be okay. So I thought I'd invite an expert IP lawyer to answer some of these questions. It was a bit of a shock this morning, though, when one of our investors turned up and said, why have we got another IP lawyer talking?
So
when,
I'm not an IP lawyer.
well, not an IP, an expert
But-
lawyer
but
in that world.
But yeah,
Yeah.
technology, a little bit of IP. So we are different. I
Are
think.
different,
So
right.
you
It's
can tell him
okay.
you're different.
It's okay then, John.
Yeah. Why aren't I speaking? Yeah. Yeah. I did say you weren't a big enough investor. Yeah.
You need to put more money in, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, and we're going to do sort of 5-10 minutes. And then if there's time, if you've got any specific questions, and again, we will share Colvin's details afterwards. If you feel like, actually, can you expand on that point? Because this is quite a long topic, really. So let me just get the
Yeah,
question.
I mean, it is a huge topic. Happy to take some questions. Also, I'm not very happy about having to follow Steve. I'll talk to you about law.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster. We go up, but we've got the accountants and the lawyers to bring us down, and then we've got the branding guys to bring us back up. So I suppose let's just start at a high level. What do you, from a sort of AI marketing, content generation, all this, what are the legal implications of all this?
Yeah, so in terms of legal implications, maybe I'll kind of break it down into the kind of regulatory landscape, then looking at some specific issues around kind of data use, and then IP actually. So in terms of the regulatory landscape, and you kind of touched on this a little bit when you were sort of saying, do regulators know what they're doing? Can they catch up? And there is this kind of misconception that actually there is no regulation around AI, and that's actually not the case. There are some existing laws. Everyone would have heard of the GDPR. That actually has a specific, some specific rules about using certain types of AI systems that create automated decisions. So things like, loan applications where someone makes a decision automatically around whether someone gets credit or not. That is already regulated under the GDPR. There's something also called the Equalities Act that, people talk about AI discrimination and bias. So that aspect of AI is already regulated in terms of the Equalities Act. But we've got a brand new piece of legislation, thanks to the EU. They're always very enthusiastic in terms of regulating technology. So there's something called the EU AI Act. Some of you might have heard about it. It's coming into force in about less than 2 years' time. And that essentially categorizes AI systems into prohibited AI. So certain types of AI are going to be completely banned. There's high-risk AI, which will be subject to quite burdensome requirements around ultimately how you use it. And there's going to be kind of low-risk AI, which is things like ChatGPT. So in the high-risk category, it will be things like credit scoring, anything you use in the employment context, anything around profiling, which will be relevant to sort of marketing and advertising. The UK has decided not to follow the route of the EU. Same with the US, actually. They're following a very similar path. And the UK is really trying to differentiate itself in a post-Brexit world, so trying to be seen as very kind of business-friendly. So we've got this kind of non-statutory or non-legal model that we're following. So we've got a set of principles that people developing using AI need to follow. Very super high level. But what the UK will do is it will require regulators to take those principles and apply them to kind of regulatory guidance and regulatory rules. So if you're operating in a regulated industry within your marketing department, or maybe your clients are, so financial services, health, communications with Ofcom, then those regulations will be relevant to what you do if you're using AI. I mentioned about GDPR. There is this concept of automated decision making. A good example, as I said, is with sort of credit applications, or maybe you're using it in the context of deciding whether you want to see CVs from an employment perspective. That essentially, if there is no human involved in that process, in that decision, may well require consent. So that's one way in which AI is regulated. And then lastly, in relation to AI, there's two aspects, IP, sorry, there's two aspects to this. So inputs and outputs. So inputs are things like data that's used to train algorithms and systems. So, you know, AI systems require a huge amount of data actually to make them kind of really work. And you've seen a lot of cases at the moment. Getty in particular have been quite active because certain AI systems have been using images to train algorithms. Dow Jones, all the kind of content industry, authors, where their data has been used to train algorithms. In essence, you can't really use that data without the permission of the IP owner. And the reality is most AI platforms have been scraping publicly available information for a long time to train their AI. So there's been a lot of litigation around that, and that's going to continue. The other issue around IP and AI is in terms of outputs. There's a huge question mark in terms of who owns outputs from AI generated works. That question isn't really kind of settled, but that's something you need to bear in mind when you're, you know, creating content.
And I suppose as a marketer and marketeers or agencies in the world, that's what we've been using AI for, is that whole, right, can we write this blog faster? Can we create a new image so we don't have to go to a photo shoot? So I suppose there's a room full of marketeers and agency folk. What's the sort of implications around that?
Yeah, so I think so. So if you're in an agency model, an agency business, I think if you're, I think the kind of biggest single risk, I think, is if, you know, you've got a contract with a client, they've asked you to create some content, and ultimately then they're asking you to transfer, you know, ownership in that content, or maybe give some comfort around that it doesn't infringe IP. That's where the issue is, actually, or one of the main issues. I think when you're giving, you know, you're trying to, your client is asking for ownership of their work, or they're asking for some comfort around that work is original. And actually, if you've used some AI to generate, you know, the content or the image or whatever it might be, I think that's where you're going to, you know, potentially get into trouble.
And have we seen anybody getting into trouble yet? Is it...
I mean, there's a huge amount of litigation with IP generated content. I think we saw very recently that someone used
Was it Sienna Miller's voice?
It was Scarlett Johansson.
That's it, yeah.
And someone, I think, created some voice, some advert, some campaign, and they're using Scarlett Johansson. Well, they weren't using Scarlett Johansson's voice. Actually, the AI created a voice that sounded remarkably similar to Scarlett Johansson. And then you've got, obviously, they eventually had to stop using it. There was obviously some reputational damage as well. So that's the sort of thing, I think, where you have to be kind of mindful from a legal risk perspective. But the sort of things that you can, how you kind of mitigate some of those risks is, you know, you might not have your own in-house system. A lot of people will, you know, ultimately outsource this or buy in kind of technology. And understanding exactly what that vendor does in terms of AI is really important. You know, well, what sources of data are they using? Because there's a massive IP risk around that, and also a data risk, a GDPR risk around that. Understanding, you know, how outputs are created and ultimately who owns that, and providing that properly in the contract, I think, is important. And also how it works. So people talk about AI in a black box. Actually, often one of your legal requirements, if you're kind of engaging with users, is to be able to explain to users ultimately how the AI works. So that's really important. Explainability is a really important. Explainability and transparency is a really important legal obligation in relation to AI. And a lot of AI systems exist in a multi-vendor environment. And what I what I mean by that is you often have some AI technology and it relies on third-party sources of data. It relies on hosting by someone else. It might contain components of other technology. And each layer of technology creates a security risk for cyber hackers. So understanding that environment and then making sure that vendors are, you know, they have appropriate security measures in place are kind of really important actually from an AI perspective. I think the other thing to think about when really mitigating some of these legal risks is around human intervention. So I mentioned that's quite important from automated decision making. People talk about a human in the loop or human in control. I think that's kind of critical in terms of managing things like discrimination and bias. So making sure that someone is actually properly reviewing the outputs. I've seen first-hand experience in terms of hallucination. So from a legal perspective, we've seen AI, someone wrote a brief, a legal brief that they actually submitted to court using AI. And the AI system they use completely made up a case. So I've seen it when I've used AI and it's kind of fabricated that it read a document that I know it hadn't read because I hadn't given it to read. So hallucination is a real risk. And so having some form of human intervention, I think, is really important to mitigate this risk. And similarly, I think if you're using AI to create copy or content or materials, the sort of process that you would typically go through where it gets screened for IP infringement, it gets screened for, if it's advertising copy, it gets screened for whether it's misleading or not, that it's truthful and it's honest, and you verify your sources. You have to adopt the same approach in relation to AI generated content. So you shouldn't treat it any differently from the way you human created content. So having a really robust approval process, I think, is really important. And then ultimately, it's very boring, but having that all contained in a policy that people understand, this is how you use AI, this is how you use it safely, and this is how you use it to mitigate risk is really, really crucial. And then ultimately having some training on that to reinforce the policy. So having a situation where, people are just kind of, it's great to experiment, but that needs to be in a controlled environment, a kind of sandbox, if you like. But where you're starting to use it in, client outputs or external outputs, I think then that does require, some safeguards in place, that to be contained in a policy, and ultimately to people to have training.
And are you seeing now companies have a policy, don't have a policy? Is that like a thing? They're asking you to help them write a policy?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the sort of work we're doing at the moment. The other thing we're seeing actually is some of our clients are now looking to draft like addendums or contracts that are dealing with specific AI risks. So they're being very clear about what they want their providers to do in terms of AI. So things like, confidentiality is key. They don't want, sensitive information being uploaded to ChatGPT. Ultimately, I mentioned about IP ownership, sharing information, etc. So we're getting very specific requirements put into contracts with, vendors, whether it be agencies or the like, around, ultimately how they use AI in the provision of services to their clients. So that's one of the kind of trends that we're seeing at the moment.
I'm just conscious of time. If you want to ask Colin any questions, can we ask them in the coffee break? Is that all right? We're a bit behind. Right, so just quickly to wrap up, what do you think the future holds with all of this? Where are we going?
So more regulation, not less. So I think ultimately the UK will end up following the EU approach. I think the US is the same as well. I think that's the only way you can do it. There's a bit of cooperation already at an international level because this is a principle that applies across borders, and the only way you can regulate it actually is at an international level. The EU is already going to pass some more law called I think it's the EU AI Liability Act, which will make it easier for individuals to essentially sue companies that use AI, and ultimately there's some harm caused from that. We see that already with the GDPR. actually. Every time I have a client suffers a data breach and we tell individuals, you know, almost immediately there are, you know, 50 lawsuits coming our way, all quite small level, but you've got these kind of privacy class action lawyers, low cost, high volume. We're going to see the same with AI, where that causes some harm to people. Maybe it's made a decision that has caused them some difficulty, or maybe there's some discrimination, some bias, and more litigation in terms of data use and IP infringement. Interestingly, I was telling someone in earlier, I've just done a deal recently with one of our publishing clients. They've just licensed their entire back catalogue of science journals to a massive tech provider for an 8-figure sum in order to train its algorithms. That is quite new, actually, because a lot of people were just, as I said, using publicly available data, which has certain risks. So we're starting to see more licensing from a data perspective, so you get more accurate and better algorithms. So that's the sort of trend we're seeing a little bit. Less relevant maybe to people in this room, but that is an overall trend where, you know, the tech providers are looking to ensure that their algorithms are just much more accurate and much more effective.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much, Colin. Round of applause for Colin. Right. Can you carry your own chair? Can you carry your own chair?
Yeah.
No, your one.
That one. Okay, sorry. Thought you want to stay on.
Right. Right. Next up. Oh, just Steve. As we know, it's all about logos and badges. Steve has got a logo and a badge for you all before you go, with a little bit of information. So when you go out, we're going to give you a little thank you for coming, and that will include a little badge from Steve. Right. Let me just get the next slides up. Oh, yeah. It's on a magnet. Right, so Emily, if you'd like to take to the stage. Emily is our director of product, and he's going to talk to us all about some of the AI we're using in our products.
You got a clicker?
Yeah, we have a clicker. There you go.
Thank you. Get over that cable. That's what I've been worried about the whole time I've been sat there, that I was going to bring the whole stage down. Hi, so I'm Emily. I'm going to talk to you about bringing natural language generative AI into BOSCO, and we're going to launch our new AI reporting. So I use John on IT support. Here we go. So yeah, who am I? So I've worked in marketing and technology for over the last decade. I did the job of a marketing manager. That was like my first ever role, kind of went up an agency, moved into technology about 6 years ago. So that's why I'm going to talk to you about this topic today. So what is natural language AI, basically? Tim obviously covered some of this in his talk, but basically it's AI that turns the data that you give it into human speak, basically. So it's large language models. It's basically what ChatGPT is. So if you've used that you're using generative AI. And there's some good bits of it that we can use to basically just speed up all the boring parts of our job, is basically what I'm going to talk about. Not all the exciting stuff that Steve does, but the boring things that actually we don't want to do, so we can live more of Steve's life. That could maybe be the motto that I should have put on. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So what I'm going to talk about is why transparency and visibility is so important, especially when it comes to data. So I apologise for any non-football fans in the room, but we're going to go on a bit of a footballing analogy journey because I just love an analogy. So in terms of football, why transparency and visibility is so important is just because we simply cannot get away with all of the things that we used to be able to get away with, because everything is available. So professional footballers used to have, you know, a few beers, a few kebabs on a Sunday after playing a really good match. Didn't really matter, wasn't going to impact their performance. Now it's definitely not about that. It's about private chefs, programs, and everything to make them better, to make them elite performers. If we look at that from a marketing perspective, we obviously had the digital boom of the 90s, early noughties. You used to be able to stick an ad up. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. Nobody really you know, if it didn't work, we just move on to the next thing that works again. That doesn't really happen now. It's not good enough to really know why something doesn't work. You need to be able to explain to people why it doesn't work and learn from those mistakes and move forward. We can end up in a bit of a analysis paralysis in terms of there being too much data. So that's what I'm going to talk about today in terms of getting to the impactful insights to help make decisions. So really going in on the analogy. So I'm sure you all know who this is. So it's obviously Pep. I'm not a Manchester City fan per se. I actually prefer the ebb and flow of success and disappointment in the team that I support, which is Hull City. So sometimes you have good years and sometimes you have horrendous years. But if you, oh. But I am a Pep supporter though, in terms of just, you know, success and his uniform. So my next slide is going to be all of Pep's achievements. So basically what that is the last thank you. Over the last 7 years, he's obviously won 6 of the last Premier Leagues with the team that he's got. He obviously as well the season before last completed the triple, so that was, you know, what he was aiming for in terms of like his level of success. In terms of patterns, he has in, you know, with Bayern Munich and with Spain, when he was managing Real Madrid, when he was managing those teams, both of those countries went on to actually win the World Cup respectively at the time that he was managing those teams, because he changed the system of football that much. The pattern didn't continue with England the other year, but, you know, 2 out of 3 is not bad in terms of his success rate. So we need to be more Pep. And what I mean by this is how we use data within marketing in terms of the system that he uses within football. Is a lot of the foundation of what he has built is he's taking data from all of the different players, player stats, match analysis, real-time data in terms of the people who are feeding him that information in the 90 minutes of a match. He has a data analyst team that he's taken to every single football club that he's been in, and he uses data as the foundation of the system that he's using within football. So from a marketing perspective, we need to, you know, be able to use some of these frameworks in order to get ultimate success.
If it doesn't do this, I will plug it straight into the project.
That's a good start though, homegrown.
Yeah. So to be more Pep, and this isn't just about the black uniform that he wears and the very slick look that he's got and the love of the great game, we need to be more transparent. And the way that we can do this is to share data openly to foster trust within our businesses. We need to be more adaptable. So we need to have access to real-time data so that we can make decisions on the spot that are going to change the output of something. I mean, in the retail space, if we look at weeks like Black Friday and things like this, we're having to make decisions on the spot in order to get the best results, and be more data driven as businesses. So gain access to actionable insights, and actually giving our team access to that data as well is really important, rather than it just sitting at one level within a business. So why transparency and visibility is so important to our industry. So I've totally moved off football now, so everyone can like have a sigh of relief. In terms of our industry, what we did was we actually used OnePoll, who are a third-party servicing company, and we actually interviewed 100 marketing managers and directors of brands and retailers. So this is important for brands and retailers in the room, but then also important from agencies, because we actually interviewed everybody on their relationship with their agency partners, so marketing agencies who were helping them. So some of the questions we asked: so have you ever stopped or considered to stop working with an agency due to the lack of transparency in the reporting that you are being provided? 62% of these marketing leaders said yes, that they had done that. Should digital marketing agencies offer more transparency in their reports? We had a big jump up here in terms of 90% of people agreed that yes, they would like to see that. Has your agency selected positive metrics and kind of moved away from some of the challenges that you might be experiencing. Another high result there in terms of 95% of people said that that had happened. And have you spotted inaccuracies in reports provided to you through like human error? And 77% of people said yes. Final question, have you stopped or considered stopping working with your agency due to poor level of analysis and actionable insights? And 73% said yes. We also asked people what were some of the key, most valued reporting features by marketers. So there's a few different ones on here. But the main ones that I wanted to highlight were 46% of people wanted clarity of presentation. So obviously being able to actually understand the data that somebody's presenting to them. And 42% wanted actionable insights. So actually impact on what an agency is showing them. So ultimately, this means we need to be more transparent and have better data insights and try and be a bit more pep. And how are we going to help you do this? So Ask BOSCO is a marketing intelligence platform. It's got 3 elements to it. So we have our AI reporting, which I'm going to talk to you about today. We have our competitor benchmarking, and we have our AI forecasting and optimization system. It's a system that uses machine learning algorithms as well as AI to basically automate the life of marketing agencies, marketing managers, brands, retailers, and to get data across loads of different levels within a business. So everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. So introducing the new AI reporting as a group of people. Yeah, drum roll, please. You are the first people to ever see our AI reporting, which is using natural language generative AI. So this week we recorded a video, so we'll see if this works when I click. And I'm just going to talk you through how it works, basically. Perfect. So this is the Ask BOSCO AI search functionality. So we pull everybody's data together all into one place from a marketing point of view anyway within our reports. But now what you're going to be able to do is basically ask a question as you would in, for example, search results, how we typically use the internet. What were my sales last week? The Ask BOSCO AI search will go away and interrogate all of your data to bring you back an answer in terms of what your, for example, total sales were last week. You can also pin this to your own live board so you can customize reports as well. This was just to get everybody, going to begin with. I thought, well, let's get a graph question up next. So what were the best performing channels last week? It goes away, looks at absolutely everything for you, comes back and lets me know that Performance Max, Shopping and PPC were the best performing channels last week across all of my data. I think, no, I don't want to look at that as a nice graph. I'll put it in a table, or actually I will change it completely and put it in a donut pie chart that I can then save and pin to my dashboard. So you're basically interrogating your data, or your teams are able to interrogate your data just by asking simple questions, and can pin all of these results to a dashboard that they can view over time whenever they want. You also have the ability to drill down. So for example, if that wasn't enough information that I needed at that particular time and I wanted to add on more information to my question, I can search for device to understand which devices drove the most revenue through Performance Max last week. And again, I can pin that to my board. We've had a bit of discussion around hallucinations and things just obviously brought up in the last section. That human intervention within our AI search did the AI search, Ask BOSCO AI search, get it right? I can let it know that yes, that is the right answer, and that'll go back into the algorithm and actually feed that information back through. And then this is just my pinned report, just to show you that it works. So these are obviously all the bits that I pinned earlier in terms of total revenue and the bar charts and things as well. I scroll down in a minute to show you the pie chart on there too. You can also favorite these reports as well. So you can create your own library of reports, not just one. You can have multiple different reports within your library. This is our reporting library. So for people who might want a helping hand to begin with, we actually do have our team. Obviously, we work really closely with the Modo 25 team. Connor's going to be speaking shortly, so Visual Soft and other customers as well. We've developed our reporting library. So to give people a helping hand, we have all of the marketing channels reports that you would need to begin with. So we have paid search, SEO, e-commerce reports, so things like Shopify data we can pull into Ask BOSCO as well. These are all just dashboards and reports that give you all of your key performance indicators and KPIs that your team would need to work on. This is the site performance report that we've got on here, so you can see key impressions, traffic costs, and all of the different metrics that your team would need to look at in terms of channels. You're also able to, we take feedback from all of our clients all of the time. So if there's a particular graph you want, anything like that, we can build it in, or with our new AI search, you could just build it yourself and pin it. You're able to drill down into all of the specific information to really understand your channel data. I just put this one in because this is probably going to be our favorite report when we do launch the AI reporting. We live in a world now where there is too much data. So we just thought we'd do a report to point out that all of the numbers that we look at are totally different. So it's really hard to run a business. So we have our platform variation report. So you'll be able to see the difference between, for example, your GA4 data versus Google Ads versus Meta. And I think this is going to be really important for businesses when you're trying to get to the single source of truth, kind of bringing some of that attribution into Ask BOSCO as well, and really being able to review that. So these are all of the reporting dashboards that we have. Finally, with all of this information, we do have AI highlights as well. So you can click on the button at the top, and what it will do is our AI capability will go away, summarize the report for you, and come back with some actionable insights that your team would be able to use. So again, just a summarization tool. So just trying to help speed up the process for marketing going forwards. Again, you can let the AI know if it got it right or not. So that's it. That's our demo for the new AI reporting. So I hope you can see how that would maybe be helpful within your business.
Sorry, did you say when that's going to be launched?
Yeah, the next 8 weeks. So mid-August is the first. Well, yeah, mid-August. Well, that's 6. That is kind of 6 weeks. So mid-August is going to be the launch to our existing clients. So you'll get the AI reporting library and all of the reports within there. And then anybody kind of from September onwards will be able to use the AI search functionality within there as well. So yeah, it's exciting.
A lot of our clients getting feedback saying we need this thing. So they're investing, since the changes between Google Analytics and GA4, they're investing in other things like Tableau and all these other different reporting platforms to get dashboards and information, whereas they're really expensive and they don't necessarily have a huge amount of value. Whereas we already had all this data because we're doing forecasting and optimization. So we thought, well, we might be able to help our clients answer those questions quicker and help.
Great. So just to summarize the benefits of AI reporting and the functionality that we're obviously trying to add into businesses through Ask BOSCO. So no more Monday morning dread. So in terms of your marketing managers having to log on to multiple different platforms, especially in an agency, and we're probably talking about this later, Connor, but Mondays are, you've got 10 different reports that you need to do for clients. You've got to get that out of the door. This, obviously using Ask BOSCO, everything all in one place with the AI functionality, hopefully speeds up that workflow for people and people get the information that they need quicker. Querying data using natural language, again, summarization and the speed of being able to do that using AI. For now, the bits that obviously we have access to, its main things that are good in terms of speeding up operational efficiencies. And then enhanced collaboration as well. So everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet. So from an Ask BOSCO point of view, we've got multiple different clients, but some of our clients use Ask BOSCO in the most transparent way possible. So their agency has access to it, them as you as a retailer or a brand have access to it as well. So everybody can see all of the same data. And then finally, if it's gonna
Kicking us out of the project again.
okay. Finally is a QR code to come and learn more about Ask BOSCO, but that I can't really show you. And PEP. So come and if you want to scan the QR code, feel free. Obviously, it's on the leaflet as well, but or speak to one of the people in a Ask BOSCO t-shirt. We stand out quite a lot in the room today to ask any questions about our platform.
So between our existing clients and us selling it, if you want to get access early to have a play with it,
different multiple QR codes, but yeah, so if you want early access to the AI reporting, you can scan this here. So thanks guys. Getting the camera back.
Right, do we need another coffee or should we just crack on? Crack on, right, I agree. And we can get back on time. Right, so similar to how I met Tim a while ago, a couple of years ago, I met a really exciting startup at an event, and they were like, oh, we're using AI. And actually, I'm not going to steal any of your stories. We're trying to stop the ad platforms nicking your money. And I'm like, that's like, we're trying to help people spend the money in the right place. Right, so our job is we're trying to help you work out where to spend your next pound. But if the platforms are wasting some of your money with other bots, the bad bots, well, we might advise you to keep spending it because it looks like it's doing something, or it might be affecting your conversion rates. So we partner a lot with Lunio. We're big fans of Lunio. All out of BOSCO clients get recommended Lunio. All Modo 25 clients get recommended Lunio. We assess the whole market in this. So over to Chester, who's going to tell you all about it.
We'll watch the cable.
Yeah, you do need a microphone.
Emily's got it. Now John's finished making promises on the behalf of his product team. I'll take over, I guess.
Yeah, I can make promises on behalf of your product as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I'm sure Neil would be very happy about that. Morning, guys. Nice to meet you all. I'm Chester, the VP of Partnerships here at Lunio. Just quick show of hands, like how many of you guys currently are investing money on Meta, investing money on Google, or have done in the past if you're not in your current roles? Okay, so a good proportion. So before we come on to talk about how Lunio leverages AI, I just want to probably just bring us back to reality a little bit. And I kind of hate to break it to you, but everybody in this room that put your hand up just then has been leveraging AI for the past 10 years plus, right? So all of the major platforms that we invest in, whether that be Google, whether that be Meta, they are all leveraging AI and have been doing so for a long period of time. The only difference that is happening now is that we're now beginning to evolve, and the, I guess, democratization of AI for day-to-day use within all of our roles is probably the key difference versus what it has been in the past, where it was only accessible to those big platforms in order to be able to drive, results delivery for everyone here. So I just thought we'd start off with that point, and then I'll come on to talk about how Lunio is leveraging AI. But ultimately, it's just an evolution, essentially the same as many things are here as well. So we're going to talk about the hidden causes of wasted ad spend, and I think that throughout the past sort of 10, 20 years of kind of digital innovation, the emergence of AI, the evolution into Gen AI, the democratization of AI, sort of trackability, different delivery platforms, big media networks, a lot is still the same as what it was sort of many, many years ago. And I'm talking sort of hundreds of years ago. And so I wanted to bring this quote up today. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this guy, but there's a guy called John Wanamaker, around in sort of the mid-19th century. He is famous for a couple of things. The first one being he developed the price tag. So back in sort of the 19th century, huge haggle culture to try and improve, I guess, profit margins on pricing, market stalls, etc. He developed the price tag to try and increase that profit margin. He's also extremely well known for this quote here, which is, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And so that's what I was referring to before, which is that despite all of the digital innovation, despite all of the advancement, this quote is as true today as what it was back then. And so we're going to come on to talk about sort of some of the different variations of wasted ad spend and sort of challenges that everyone in this room is facing on a daily basis. So the first one, the one that probably most people associate with wasted ad spend is the, investing in customers that were coming to your site anyway. Often referred to in the industry as non-incremental investment, right? So we're spending money on people that were coming to your site regardless, and therefore we didn't necessarily need to invest in them. The biggest challenge around that is we don't know which customers were coming and which they weren't, right? And measurement, trackability, attribution is a key part in
what makes this part extremely difficult, but nonetheless, a form of wasted ad spend that we're all trying to innovate and get around on a daily basis. We then talk about poor campaign setup, poor audience selection, poor keyword groupings, poor creative, just essentially bad execution of what we do on a day-to-day basis. That is still a form of wasted ad spend that, again, we're all trying to mitigate on a daily basis, ultimately trying to increase the effectiveness of everything that we do. Now I'm going to come on to talk about another variation of wasted ad spend, and this variation is something that is extremely close to Lunio and ultimately directly aligned with the challenge that we're trying to solve at Lunio. And that is wasted ad spend in the form of invalid traffic. Invalid traffic can mean many things to many different people. What that means to us is essentially non-human traffic that comes from in the form of bots, low value customers, like real humans, that ultimately have an extremely low propensity to go on and purchase, and they just show really strange behaviors, and they're essentially, I guess, depleting your investments, and particularly where CPCs are getting more and more expensive, cost of media is getting more and more expensive. That is becoming super, super critical. Some of you might be sat thinking, okay, I kind of get it, there's bots, but really, you know, what is the scale of that problem? Is it something that we should really care about? And so I just want to talk about sort of some of those key stats. And so if we look at it at a very macro lens, 2022, and the reason it's at 2022 is that's the last time WPP published their figures. But essentially, there was approximately $714 billion spent on advertising globally. That's both on and offline. We're seeing a really strong CAGR within digital media investment. So 391 billion is now spent on digital, approximately 54% of total. You know, and that's continuing to grow at around a 17.5%, 18% CAGR each year. And so, you know, that's becoming a bigger part of our media mix. The extremely scary part of that is that approximately $54.5 billion of that total 391 billion is wasted on bot and invalid fraudulent traffic every single year. I'll just let that sink in just for a second. That's approximately around 8.5% of that total investment. Now, when we talk about, we had the guys from KPMG talk about retail. You know, retail where margins are extremely tight, whilst they made you huge numbers from a revenue perspective, when this actually comes down, you know, down to your PC1, PC2, PC3 margin, EBITDA level, you know, 54 billion is a huge swing on whether a business makes money or whether it doesn't make money in a given year. You know, margins are being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. Retail is a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. And if you're hemorrhaging 8.5% of your budget on waste every single year, that's extremely scary. Okay. There is a full report that we publish each year in partnership with Integral Ad Science, if those that are familiar with Integral Ad Science, to try and really understand the scope of this challenge, the scale of the problem at hand. If you want to scan the QR code now, I'm sure John will probably share the slides after so that you can get access to it. But you'll see a full breakdown here in terms of wasted investment due to fraudulent bot traffic at a sort of channel level, placement type, variances between PMAX, variances between search, meta, sort of the big offenders, etc. You'll be able to access that in this report here. There are obviously some additional headwinds that we're all facing from a performance marketing perspective as well. You know, a big one is rising costs. We've already talked about that. CPCs are continuing to inflate year on year. Google have got antitrust cases against them in terms of inflating costs for their own commercial benefit. Competition is getting more and more fierce. The landscape's changing in terms of the search types, etc., that are available, the inventory that's available. We're also losing a huge amounts of visibility and control, right? We've just talked about getting greater transparency, increasing visibility in order for you to be able to act. The platforms that we're working with on a daily basis are moving towards these black box solutions, whether that be PMAX, demand generation, and ultimately we're being told to give our budget to those platforms and don't worry about it, we'll take care of it, we'll tell you where to spend it, we'll do it for you. We're not going to tell you where that's going. So we're losing visibility, we're losing control. We no longer have a full visibility and understanding of where we're actually spending, what's it being spent on. And that's a massive problem, right? And then the final one is there's an element of dirty data, right? Is that the AI models that we're all developing, the audience builds that we're having, all of this technology that we've got integrated into our stack, a lot of it is only as good as the inputs that we have going into it.
And so if we have bad quality data going in, bad audiences, bots going into our data set, you know, it skews our bidding algorithms. It skews our ability to be able to build sort of high quality seed audiences for lookalikes, remarketing audiences for remarketing purposes. It skews our ability to make really robust analytics decisions when a user is on site. You know, we're working with a major retailer in the UK at the moment. They have a massive retail media arm. Big brands are investing millions of pounds into their retail media arm, but they're making decisions and encouraging their customers to invest decisions based on analytical data that is skewed on site. They're saying that one widget outperforms the other, but actually we have helped them be able to identify that actually it's bots that are skewing the analytics on site, and therefore, you know, there is a shift in that. And so dirty data is equally a big problem. I'll come on to talk a little bit more about Lunio. So the number one role of Lunio is to ultimately try and increase the quality of traffic to site. By increasing the quality of traffic to site, we hope to have a subsequent impact on ultimately trying to enabling you guys to maximize the marketing effectiveness and your long-term marketing effectiveness. Our product, the way that I tried to look at it, is Lunio is the total product. Inside of Lunio, there are 3 core features. The first feature is all centered around transparency. We have a proprietary technology that leverages an advanced random forest machine learning model to be able to ingest clickstream data and be able to determine whether a user is valid, invalid, or suspicious. We categorize that data, we organize it, and we ultimately try to give visibility against a metric that the platforms won't give to you themselves. We allow you to try and hold them to account. We allow you to monitor this over time. Are you increasing? Is your invalid traffic rate increasing? Is it decreasing? What is the overall macro trend, and how can you begin to influence that? So that's the first part, is all around transparency. The second part is around empowerment. Once we begin to collect that data, we organize it in a way that's digestible. We put it into different visualizations, into different categories that will ultimately enable all of you guys in the room to begin to identify insights that can potentially be used for optimization. We're giving you an element of transparency. We're giving you an element of control back in a world where it keeps being taken away from us. Okay. You know, a great example here would be, we go all the way down to keyword type. So a great example might be you have a high offending keyword from an invalid traffic perspective. So traffic volume at face value looks great. It's driving huge loads of traffic to site. I'm not going to remove that from my campaigns. But actually using Lunio and using the AI to be able to identify what is valid and what is invalid, we're able to actually tell you, you know, 10% of that is complete junk. It's rubbish. And so what can you begin to do in terms of experimentation, optimization to try and mitigate that risk? Do you change the match type? Do you increase the ROAS target? Constantly trying to adjust in order to be able to reduce the invalid traffic and increase the quality of traffic, having downstream benefits. The final part of our solution is all centered around quality. In addition to this empowerment and insight and enablement part, we also have an automated protection feature. Because we ingest all of your clickstream data, we assign an IP address and we begin to continue to monitor that IP address. Once we begin to identify an IP address as invalid, we ping those IP addresses or those IP groupings directly to Google, directly to Meta, and we begin to exclude them from being featured in your campaigns in the future. That allows you to automatically mitigate that risk of bots and ultimately reduce the invalid traffic that's coming to site, increasing the quality and maximizing your downstream benefit. You might be questioning, I know that we've got a lawyer in the room, so I'll speak it from an advertising point of view, which won't be super technical, but some of you might be thinking, but is IP address not personally identifiable? Does that not give us conflicts from a GDPR perspective? Right now, we operate under legitimate interest. We're using that IP address for exclusion audiences versus positive targeting. And because it is fraudulent traffic that's being generated for malice, with malicious intent, we're able to exclude that and leverage that data point. Okay. And then I'll just leave you with this one slide. When we first onboarded with BOSCO and with John and the guys, we only looked after sort of this search part at the top. We were born PPC Protect. We've evolved into become what's now known as Lunio, and the integrations that we now have are extremely vast. We are able to take more and more control and support you with more and more of your media mix, ultimately trying to give you greater visibility, greater transparency, empower and provide improvements in quality of traffic, benefiting downstream. I'll pass back over to John, but thanks everyone for your time this morning. Thank you, Nick. Yes.
Right, we're nearly done. Don't run off. If you haven't bought a raffle ticket, it's too late. They've gone. We're going to draw the raffle, and somebody in the room will win. If they've already gone and their number comes up, we'll just redraw it until somebody in the room wins. So it's just, oh, I'm not sure you're authorised to do that, Rob. Redraw. Right, so I'll sort out you some chairs. Just stick this on. So let me just mic you up. I'll let Connor introduce himself, but a while ago we got introduced to VisualSoft. Well, 18 months ago probably we got introduced, and we went up to see those guys, and we've now been working with them for over 12 months. VisualSoft, a big agency. If you didn't know about them right now, you're going to know a lot more about them in a minute. And they're one of our biggest BOSCO partners from an agency point of view. So Emily's just going to ask Connor some questions like how do they use it, what the benefits, what the practical, real life experiences of using our platform. So I'll turn the speed out of the yellow one. There you go.
Perfect.
Over to you guys.
Was that a good enough introduction from John?
Yeah.
Or would you like
I
to
thought I'd introduce yourself.
introduce yourself?
So hi everyone, I'm Connor. I'm the senior consultant at VisualSoft. So I've done a number of different roles for the business, but it's all been based around kind of working with our new or existing clients to help them write strategies ultimately to succeed online. So VisualSoft, we do lots of different things. You may have come across us before in one element, whether or not that's, for example, web design and development, whether it might be PPC campaign management. But ultimately what we do is we enable retailers to grow online. We do that in a number of different ways, from platform, from marketing strategy, individual channel management, to full wraparound kind of agency service. So we can be very, very flexible in how we work. But yeah, as John mentioned, we work with a number of kind of key partners that enable us to provide, transparency and better value and services to our clients. And BOSCO have been a really big part of that for the last year or so.
Yeah, so that's a great lead in terms of, do you want to just let everybody know how you actually use BOSCO and your teams?
Absolutely, yeah. So the teams really use ultimately what the product is. So it's the forecasting, the reporting, and the benchmarking elements of it. And we use it both for our clients' benefit, but also actually for internal understanding. So one of the kind of key parts of VisualSoft and the service that we provide is the strategy piece that sits on top of the actual marketing layers. If you do each channel individually, it's never going to be as successful as it can possibly be. But what we found before we had like a really clear reporting tool is actually there might have been almost interdepartmental discussion, we'll say discussion rather than argument, about how well each channel is actually performing. Meta, we know, will always over report in terms of how well it's forecasting, based on the attribution level. So BOSCO gives us a single source of truth, which is really, really important, and actually enables us to do a deeper dive into, what effects the strategies are having and how the individual channels are contributing. We also use it from a more client-facing point of view. So all of our clients who we actually have on BOSCO have a login. We actually want them using that data. We want them getting in there and understanding it. I think you used a lovely term, which is it helps foster trust, and that's really important for us. And the reporting piece as well is become more and more crucial to the kind of service that we deliver. Ultimately, there's a lot of squeeze on retailers online. A lot of the conversations that we have are all based around margin and kind of a concern about how the business is going to grow and scale efficiently and profitably. So being able to forecast with high levels of accuracy has been a real game changer in terms of how we're able to provide confidence to the retailers that we're working with.
Can you give us any good stuff then in terms of clients and things like this, in terms of who are using BOSCO, any results or anything,
Sure.
anything like that?
So we tend to work with BOSCO across our bigger clients, across the clients who are generating more revenue, doing more channels with us. But one of the kind of key call outs, I know that Ian has mentioned this previously, one of our bigger clients, the Leader Group, so they do doors, floors, homeware. They saw a 25% increase in Q4 on their return on ad spend. So it's not just about the growth that they managed to achieve year on year, it's also about the fact that using the BOSCO forecasting allowed them to increase their profitability as well as growth in that key trading period. So that was great.
I spoke with a couple of our customers last week, so I'm now in the new business team. I don't work with any of our active customers, but it's interesting to hear how they're using it. And I spoke with two of the kind of business leaders, if you like, the founders, the heads of digital, and they're using it almost as a at-a-glance tool. They want to come in, look at maybe the executive summary. It's really interesting to see the natural language AI, because I think that's actually going to progress the product for them even further. They'll look at it and say, you know, how were my sales last week? Which channels are doing well? We've maybe, you know, we're doing a new strategy. We're trying to bring more people in and a bigger prospecting market. They can just at a glance see what they want to see and don't have to rely on someone in their team, or they don't have to rely on someone within VisualSoft to get that data. It's there at their fingertips. It's really powerful. Where we then kind of might change where we're working with a marketing manager or a internal performance marketing manager, for example, is we get into the data a lot more. We look at what's going on week on week. We look at what campaigns are doing well and not doing so well, and that enables us to make better data-backed decisions rather than relying on the platforms telling us this is doing brilliantly when truly it might not be.
Yeah, so obviously that's how the teams and things are using it. So I suppose more specifically, you've obviously said you're in more of a sales role now at VisualSoft. So how was, you know, the adoption of, you know, new technology and things like this helping you in your role?
So I think what I found really interesting since I moved into a new business role a couple of years ago, every single conversation will start with, we've had bad experiences with agencies. All retailers have had an agency who've come along and promised the world and delivered absolutely nothing, and you know, relationships break down, and it's something that we have to overcome. Now, we use BOSCO as one of a number of tools. We also use SimilarWeb as well. Brilliant tool too. Highly recommend that you all look at that. And we try and be honest and transparent with clients during the buying process. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually understand what's happening now. And the benchmarking tool within BOSCO is brilliant for that. You know, we can actually take a look at the market as it exists. And we try and position it not as this is what VisualSoft can do for you, but where are you? Where do you want to be? What's that gap? And then how do we give you business intelligence and confidence that we're going to go on and actually be able to achieve those things for you? And it's about, again, the transparency, the accuracy of data and reporting. BOSCO is almost a safety net for them, that we're going to be giving you real clarity on, you know, through this tool. And again, I think you used a lovely term earlier, which is third-party validation. It's almost as if in a client meeting, you've got someone else in the room and you can really place your trust in them because they haven't, you know, you haven't got any vested interest in giving inaccurate reporting or whatever that might be. So BOSCO kind of comes into the conversations more as we're going to use this tool and this is how we're going to, you know, enable a better working relationship with you and really give you confidence that we're going to be able to achieve that growth that you need or achieve the results that you need in order to move the business forward.
Cool, brilliant. And then just in terms of AI, have you started having any, you know, from a prospect's point of view or clients that you're working with, have you started getting into that type of conversation yet with anybody? Like what are brands, retailers wanting?
I think the AI is obviously, it's a huge topic. You know, you can't be in business now and have not had a conversation about it or have heard like a snippet of it, you know, whether that might prove from the legal implications or understanding the efficiencies that it can bring. Clients aren't, in my experience, necessarily so concerned that you are using AI. What they want to understand is, what is that going to mean for my business? So for us, what we try, you know, how we try and explain BOSCO, one of the things that we used to spend a lot of time doing, and I've done this in roles before, I've worked in deliveries, reporting, 2-3 days a month of actually going into, you know, Meta Business Manager, going into your affiliate campaign, going into Google advertising and pulling out data and then spending time to collect that and put that into clients. Now, that's wasted time for you as a business. If you're paying channel experts, if you're paying strategic experts to actually help you grow, you want them doing the stuff that's actually going to drive your business forward. It's going to drive your revenue. It's going to bring the money through the door. So what Ask BOSCO allows us to do is we don't have, you know, it's a live reporting system. We can jump into it. The client jumps in. We're all looking at the same thing, talking about the same information. It actually frees the teams up to do more of the good stuff, do more creative content, write more strategies, just really try and drive performance rather than telling you what has happened already.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thanks, Connor. Connor's going to be around as well afterwards, having a coffee and things if anybody has any specific questions for him as well. But yes, that's everything.
Thank you very much, Connor.
Thank you.
Steve's got another story for us. Yeah. This wasn't planned. I've got no idea what he's going to say. But
Well, just listening to this, there's a lot of worrying going. And of course, you know, we live in times of worrying. And there was two guys talking. And one said to the other, he said, I just can't stop worrying. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, Brexit, economy, AI, all the wars that are going on. He said, I'm worrying about my family every second. He said, I worry about my business every hour. He said, I even get in a car, I'm driving, I'm worrying. I just can't stop worrying. He went, oh, you should hire a professional worrier. He went, what? Yeah, he said, I know one. Out of adversity, the guy's amazing. He set up his own business, does all the worrying through the superstars, does all the worrying through the big corporations, all the law firms, all the banks. He's a professional worrier. He went, man, that's amazing. He said, how much does he charge? He said he charges £10,000 a month. He went, 10 grand a month. How can I afford 10 grand a month? He said, let him worry about it. Worrying.
Right. I'm going to be doing the funny stuff next. This is really hard. Right, this is really hard. Right. Let's get the next slide up. Right, so I'm going to have a bit of fun using some where's okay using. So are you all familiar with the heads and tails game? Yeah. So can you all stand up? Right. And we're going to do higher or lower. If you think it's higher, put your hands on your head. If you think it's lower, put your hands on your bum. And there's going to be some amazing prizes. This is different to the raffle, but this is just a sort of highlight. And also interesting to get your view. I don't think we've mentioned any of the brands in the room, but we want to go right. It's a pretty little thing. Gets an Ask BOSCO score on the index of 540. Is misguided higher or lower? Higher is better. Yeah, we can. Yeah, yeah. Right. So this is online visibility. I thought everybody knew about the Ask BOSCO index. So this is their online visibility across all their channels and also includes their website health. So this is their overall Ask BOSCO. We take multiple different data sources, we mash it all up and go, right. So good is anything between 500 and 750. If you're below 500, you're terrible. If you're above 750, you're amazing. Nobody ever gets 1,000 because that just wouldn't make the graph look good. So who thinks misguided is higher or lower than pretty little thing? Higher, hands on your head. Lower, hands on your bum. So 540. Ooh. So if you've got your hands on your bum, stay standing. If you've got hands on your head, sit down. All right. Oh, look, that whittled a load out there. That did. Right. So now we've got mint velvet. Are they? This is an easy one. They can't be worse than misguided. This might be a gimme. All right. Higher or lower? I'm not trying to trick you. Higher or lower? But that's a really bad score. So I go higher, Steve. Yeah. Right. So mint velvet, higher or lower than 314? Oh, higher, but only just. So anybody with your hands ahead, stay standing. If you sit down. Monsoon, higher or lower than 395? Higher. So your hands on your bum, sit down. And then we've got Monsoon, higher or lower than ASOS? ASOS higher or lower than Monsoon, right? What do we reckon? Everybody loves ASOS, don't they? We've got a lot of people gone higher. If it's lower, we're down to 2. Oh, no, 3. It's higher. Sit down if you had your hands on your bum. Right, how many we got? 2, 4, 5. Right, we're going to get a winner. Are you still in, Colvin? No. Right, Boohoo. I've got a separate story about Boohoo if anybody wants to. There's nobody from Boohoo in here, I don't think, so we can talk about them later. Higher or lower than ASOS? Yeah, you need to look at the odds now. So we've got 2 going higher. Everybody else is going lower. Lower. All right. I'm not sure you 2 are allowed to win. Right. So it's been you 2. Right. Come to the front. Right. Yeah. Higher or lower? Bowden or Boohoo? We need a winner. We need a winner. Yeah. 5 and 16. Lower. Oh, right. Give them all. Hang on. You both get a prize. You both get a prize. Hang on. You both get a prize. Right. There you go. Who was the actual winner? Oh. No, there you go. And an Ask Bosco mug. And you get a mug. There you go. Round of applause, everybody. The Ask Bosco index is a bit like, if anybody remembers Hitwise, Hitwise was this thing that everybody used to obsess about, and it's just a single metric that pulls in loads of different publicly available data, but organizes it in a nice way so that you can benchmark yourself against your competitors. We'll just finish off. This was in case it went on. Next, doing well. New Look, doing less well. And I didn't get it too far. I didn't think we'd get it. I thought we'd get a little bit further. But right, so that just brings me really to thank our speakers. So big hand and round of applause for all our speakers. And please do hang around. Abby and Nikki might grab you just to do a quick thing to camera on what you thought about the event, what you thought about our speakers, just to help us get more people here next time. So if we have a little gift as you leave. So thanks very much. And hopefully you found that useful. We'll send. Oh, raffle. Yeah, no, I was going to keep that. Yeah, raffle. Right. You got your tickets. Are you going to be the glamorous assistant? Steve, be my glamorous assistant. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, no. Well, it's not those. It's not those. Put those back in. Right. So we've got four prizes. So we've got a Jones the Bootmaker voucher. We've got a Sigma voucher. And then Cormac's not here now. So you can go into the shop and have as many shirts as you want. And they are lovely shirts. My best shirts. Right. Right. So this is for the Sigma Sport. What did we say, Ian?
Number 4.
Oh! Is that a new bike, Ian? New bike? Yeah. Right, this is then for the Jones the Bootmaker voucher.
$93.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Well done. We need to get David's Jones the Bootmaker voucher. And Catherine. I haven't got them. I'll send you them. They're virtual. It's all saving paper. We're saving paper. Yeah, and then this is for the shirt from Cormac.
118.
Oh, that's good. Right. Okay. Well done, Paul. And then this is the big prize for a weekend dinner, bed and breakfast here on a Friday or Saturday of your choice in one of their nice rooms upstairs.
There's a clue. Heinz.
Oh,
Heinz 57.
Right. Let me just. Right. Who's got? Is it you? It's the redraw.
Nish. You bought loads of tickets. It's like 50 quid.
Oh, let's give it to Nish. Right. Yeah. So, and just so you're aware, Jessica was going to come down, but I don't know where she is. We do actually have Nish's prize here, but also on your seats. If you see Jessica, I'm going to make sure she knows I did the big push for Homegrown. Homegrown have kindly let us use this space because Rob and I are both members. And if you take this away with you, you can come here and use the facilities for a day at your leisure whenever you want. So it's great for meetings. Great. They've got it. I sort of describe it as sort of like a grown-up WeWork. For like grown-ups and real people. I have a great food, great for entertaining, really nice work area upstairs, some outside space, and a really nice cocktail bar upstairs. So if also within that, if you want to hang around here for the rest of the day, you can and use the facilities. That's absolutely fine. Right, have I forgotten anything else, Abby? Am I all right? All right, good. Thank you very much for coming, and we will send all the slides to you. Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
So when the other end of the camera around you, then flip straight. So
No worries. No, okay. Yeah, good. Well, thanks for coming. I really appreciate you. We appreciate you coming along.
Really interesting.
Oh yeah, no, good.
I think there's only one guy in the room there what's around in the forest estate.
Yeah. Good to see you, Richard. Thanks for coming.
Excellent.
Was it good? Yeah. Could you both just say that on video?
I've got face for radio.
No, just quickly. Come with me. Come here. I've got two people who are going to do the video for Nikki, but we can give them a thing. All right. And then just come around the corner with us and you can say what you just said to me on camera.